You are Black in the Green Room with me, your host, Keith Underwood. And this is your spot for real talk about entertainment with entertainers, creatives, and showbiz professionals. Host Keith L. Underwood. In this episode, we're breaking it down with the stars and minds behind Godfather of Harlem and three powerful segments that explore the artistry, impact, and real stories behind the show. First up is someone who's been instrumental in making it all happen, both on screen and behind the scenes. Markuann Smith is an executive producer and co-star of the series, and his journey from working at BET and MTV to creating one of the most culturally resonant shows on TV is as compelling as the show itself. Markuann Smith, welcome to the room.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you for having me, man.
You're very welcome. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. I'm excited that Sunday is almost around the corner. April 13th, MGM Plus season 4. Feels like yesterday. It feels like yesterday.
Yeah. As I mentioned in your intro, you've worn so many hats: actor, producer, creator. You've been in rooms with lots of folks that we don't even sometimes know exist. What was that moment for you when it clicked like, all right, this is it. I'm doing exactly what I was meant to do.
It was surreal. I think when Godfather of Harlem, when we first sold the show, and it was our day one. I'm on set, and a Teamster walks up to me and says, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" And I was like, "Sure. What's going on, brother?" He was like, "Thank you for never giving up. For you never giving up allowed me to feed my family for the next 6 months." That's when I realized that this is something that I just want to inspire people and tell people never give up on your dreams, your hopes, your ambitions, your inspirations. Just go out there and go for yours. And that really did something to me to know that I have a village of 300 people that's working for us on set shooting every day, from the gaffers to the grips to the electric guys to the even to the transportation to hair and makeup. It was based on a dream that I dreamt about 18 and 20 years ago that I told my godmother that I would go out there to make happen. So that's something that was just amazing to me.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing. Man, I'm going to ask you the craziest, most obvious question in the world, but I hear that accent. Where you from?
New York City.
What part of New York are you from?
Well, I grew up in Harlem, 128th and St. Nicholas, and then from there I moved out to Far Rockaway, Queens.
Okay, all right. What
Yeah.
made you decide to kind of was your upbringing inspiration in doing Godfather of Harlem, and if so, how?
Oh man, it started off in Lenox Terrace. So if you know about Lenox Terrace, it's on Lenox Ave. It's one of the most affluent apartments. People wanted to move in, from politicians to musicians to athletes to Percy Sutton lived there. My godmother lived there. Her name is Margaret Johnson. So Margaret in Godfather of Harlem is played by Demi Singleton, the young lady, right? And going up to Margaret's apartment, she used to tell me these magical stories every Sunday. I would go to the deli, get her some rye bread, some beef tongue and mustard, and I thought it was nasty, but she would sit down and eat it, and we would just talk about Harlem, right? She used to tell me how she used to walk out of a tenement building, smell fresh laundry hanging out of the window, walk past the Apollo, look up and see James Brown's name on the marquee. Walk past Sugar Ray Robinson's barber shop. You may see his pink Cadillac outside. Hear Sam Cooke's voice coming out of a transistor radio. Nat King Cole waiting to get a haircut. But she also told me that Harlem was one of the most tumultuous times in America at
Mm,
the time. She said African Americans migrated from the South trying to escape Bull Connor's water hoses and his dogs.
mm.
Regardless if you went to Washington, D.C., Philly, or Newark, you come up to New York, it's still racism. Something as simple as going to a store to purchase a hat, where the
Mhm.
store owner may say, you know what, you need to put a plastic bag on your scalp because I don't want that hat to touch your scalp.
Wow.
A father of five worked all week. He wants to take his family out for a steak dinner. The owner wouldn't let him patronize with the rest of the individuals that he's allowed into his restaurant, so they give him a plate to go. But then she also mentioned about her grandfather. His name is Ellsworth Raymond Johnson. He's a Geechee Gullah from Charleston, South Carolina. He actually came up to New York not to be a gangster because the streets know him as Bumpy Johnson. He actually
Hmm.
came to New York to become an attorney like Malcolm X. So when the city college bursar said, we don't give financial aid to people of color, he took the cards that he was dealt with and played it the best way he could. He was the first African American underboss that sat down with the five families. I mean, Lucky Luciano, Vito Genovese, Frank Costello, Bugsy Siegel, Meyer Lansky. They were Jewish, but they were part of this whole La Cosa Nostra, these roots. And he was the conduit to bringing in the dope or the doogie into Central Harlem. But he also rumors that he beat Bobby Fischer in chess. He
Hmm.
read Shakespeare. He read Nietzsche. So he wasn't a gangster that just said, I just want to be a gangster. He actually was trying to transition and change his life. And I made a promise to her almost 20 years ago that I would go out there and get the real story of who her grandfather was, not the one you saw in American Gangster, not the one you saw in Hoodlum, not the one you saw in the Cotton Club, but as accurate as we could portray it. And that was over 20 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You've built something that's way bigger than just a show. I mean, just listening to you just now, I know that. It's culture, it's history, and it's your story. When people look back at your journey, what do you hope that they take away from how you've moved and how you made this happen?
I want people to look at me and see that you're looking at someone that believed in himself. I said this before that the loudest booze come from the cheapest seats, right? So
Always.
if you knock on opportunity's door and it doesn't open for you, go to Home Depot, get some lumber, create your own door, create your own path, create your own lane. And I want people to be inspired to just get off their couch, get out their bed, and go out there and get theirs because there are more years behind us than that's in front of us. Life is too short. Tomorrow is not promised. And I decided to chase my passion and not my pension. People chase their pensions all the time. I just wanted to chase my passion. So I'm hoping that when people hear my story, they're inspired to chase theirs as well.
Yes.
Dropping, I love color hoodies, fly like soundtracks, 8 tracks, taking it back to LPs, that's a flashback. I lay down fashion on these streets like Beverly Hill asphalt. Got everyone driving clean, they can't help but feel the vibes. It's a full of soul. I'm from the East Coast where the rap game is gritty, spitting lyrics so raw they hit hard like the streets.
Joining me in the room today is the multi-talented Rome Flynn, Emmy-winning actor, singer, and all-around creative powerhouse. You've seen him on The Bold and the Beautiful, How to Get Away with Murder, and now he's shaking things up in season 4 of Godfather of Harlem, streaming now on MGM Plus. Rome takes on the role of a young Frank Lucas, right-hand man to Bumpy Johnson, played by Forrest Whitaker, and trust us, he is bringing the fire. Rome, welcome to the room.
What an introduction. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, man. You're welcome. So, man, so when Godfather of Harlem came calling and asked you to play a young Frank Lucas, what was going through your head? And how did you even begin to tap into a character as prolific as that?
Yeah, I jumped at the opportunity to portray, I feel like, the early stages of one of the most infamous, like you said, prolific figures in American history.
Hmm.
Drugs is American history. And so, yeah, I mean, it was a dream come true. As an actor, you want to be able to play a character with this much, complexity and just rich backstory and depth. And also being led by, Chris Brown Cotter, who created the show. And I had been a fan of the show before that. I watched the first couple seasons and, working with Forrest Whitaker was the obvious draw for me. Um, but to be able to step into some shoes that I haven't before, playing a young Frank Lucas, and a lot of people asking me like, what's it like playing a character that Denzel played? And to me, it's like apples to oranges. It's like they're both fruit but different, So we're the same but different. We're playing the same character but different approach. And I'm playing him 10 years before that we actually meet him later on.
Right.
So, yeah,
Almost like a prequel character.
exactly. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you mentioned Forrest Whitaker just a moment ago. What's it like, man, to go toe to toe with him, and what are you learning from him?
Yeah, it's a gift, honestly. I've been afforded the opportunity to work with some really, really talented actors. Um, obviously Viola Davis being one of those. I put her in a category with, Forrest in a category with her. Um, yeah, I mean, just being able to work opposite with them, work opposite with him, um, learning how he approaches the craft, and just learning along the way and trying to just take what I can from how he approaches things, really.
Yeah. Was it intimidating the first time on set with him?
Um, no, it wasn't intimidating because, early on I realized in this business that we're not curing cancer.
Mm.
And I'm not I'm not walking into brain surgery. And so I have to keep that level of understanding. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a heavy respect and like responsibility that I know comes along with working alongside these incredible actors. Um, but I just trust my preparation. I trust how much I work and what I do.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I dedicated the last 10 years of my life to this. So it's like, it's like going to the free throw line. You've hit a million free throws, but you just got to focus to hit that one. And
Right,
so
right, right.
go and work opposite of these incredible actors.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you've done daytime soaps, you've done legal thrillers, and now this very gritty drama period piece. How do you switch it up so smoothly? And is it a different vibe for each role?
Yes, different approach, different vibe, also different creative process too. With Bold and Beautiful, that being a daytime, soap, it was the amount of work was heavy. We filmed a lot. It was like a 9 to 5, but we filmed a lot,
Hmm.
and it was every day. And so the attention to detail for me was really important because I had so many scripts and so many changes day of, and so I had to figure out how to deal with that on the fly and then working, obviously going to do a procedural. I was doing Chicago Fire, which is a whole different approach. Understanding the psyche and the mindset of a blue collar person, working in the field that they work in as a firefighter, like understanding that mindset and also just putting all the gear on. I'm doing all of the necessary things because the attention to detail and the credibility of the show is relying on me to know all of these things.
Yeah. Did
So,
you watch any old newsreel for Frank?
what was it?
Did you watch any old like news footage or
Oh
anything
yeah,
like
oh
that?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yes, I did. I mean, I watched everything I could on them. I read everything I could on him, but mainly I did my due diligence in trying to get to know him as much as I could.
Hmm.
But my job here, it wasn't to imitate him. Like I'm not here to. I'm portraying who Frank could have been, right? But the essence of this character really isn't about those things we know already. It's like
Hmm.
I get to tell the story from the beginning. So who is he at the beginning? He could have been anyone. He could have been me. He could have been you. And so who is this kid coming from the South and making his way to Harlem? Like that's the more of the story, the meat of the bones for me. And he finds his way to navigate the politics of Harlem along the way. And so that's the story I'm telling.
Yeah.
Obviously, I feel like that's the story we need to see because we've seen the ending result. We've seen what ends up happening. So let's tell the story on how he got there.
Yeah. Studying that early journey of his, did you learn anything interesting or surprising?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, everything I kind of already knew, but he has a big family, huge.
Hmm.
And I realized that there's a lot of people in his life that view him differently.
Hmm.
Obviously the public, based on the things we know about him now, but like his family members, somebody's father, somebody's brother, uncle. And so their perception of him was a lot different when I did my research, which helped me ground him in a way approach it in a more a humanistic approach, as far as, stepping into the shoes of Frank.
Yeah. What's your personal opinion? Is he a villain or is he a hero? What are your thoughts? And I think the way that you touched on the complexities of the character by talking to his family, most family members are not going to see family members as villains. They're going to see them as family. So that even makes the character more complex when you're bringing it to life.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't judge any character I play. I think that morality lies with your perspective. Morality is based on how you see things. And so I always try to step into the shoes of characters from their perspective, not my own. And so I think that he's a hero in my mind. I think he's been dealt a certain hand. And what I know now about his life, who's to say if I was put in that situation, I wouldn't end up in the same way. Now, I do feel we all have a moral obligation to make the right and wrongs, right? But sometimes
Hmm.
right and wrong isn't so black and white. And that gray area lives pretty deep among, especially culturally,
Hmm.
in that vein, like what's right and what's wrong is up to the person's perspective. And so um playing him, I learned that he had to adapt. And adapting sometimes means that doing things that maybe feel like you shouldn't do them.
Hmm.
Um, it's like, man, it's survival instinct for him. And my thing was the why, trying to figure out what drove him to become who he ended up becoming, because you don't become that on accident. Like, what is that driving force, and I think all these things accumulate over his life drove him to the point where he just was really driven by doing everything the best way and outsmarting people and making the money that he made and coming from nothing and having everything. I mean, it's so complex, and so you can't really judge it. For me, I can't judge it because there's so many nuances to him and just to people like him, um, that I've been able to find some redeeming qualities.
Hmm. Yeah, with all of the roles that you played and with all of the fantastic, performance that you've been able to work with, I was really surprised to be just looking at YouTube one day and there this brother was singing. Man,
Yeah.
how long has music been a part of your life? Was it a first love? And then how is it now balancing singing and acting?
Yeah, music has always been my first love was basketball. That's why I learned the synchronicities of the how life mirrors sports and mirrors like any kind of organizational games. Like how you conduct yourself in those areas is normally how you conduct yourself in the world. And so that was the first love for me, but music was definitely a close second because I didn't grow up being an actor. I didn't grow up studying drama school. Like, I was a late bloomer in that aspect. Like I had a multitude of, relatively normal jobs in my early adult life.
Hmm.
And so you doing this, it feels like, you know, all those things kind of led me to this point. But music being sort of the foundation for me because it actually sparked my creativity. It sparked my perspective. Um, and also early on, I realized how music was just so universal. Like you will listen to a song that isn't in your language and still feel the vibe of it. And I think that's unique. There's not many things you can say in our life that have that kind of, you know, similarity.
Yeah, yeah. What have you learned about yourself over the course of your career?
Um, I think on the outside looking in, for me, sometimes it's hard to do that, but I feel like I'm very resilient.
Hmm.
I think I have such a deep well of determination and like an unwavering like spirit to do the work and to be great. And I'm not scared of trying to be great. I'm not
Hmm.
scared of failing. It's like I feel like I have a good perspective on my life and my career and separating those things now. Um, and how it can get consuming in life where your career becomes who you are. So I think it's important to kind of create a divide so that you have a private life, you have things that feel protective to you.
Hmm.
And I just been learning throughout the decade I've been doing this on how to navigate that because this business is tough. It's very difficult to break into, and um, I don't take it for granted.
Hmm. Yeah, one of the things that's just so wild to me is the whole colorism, issue that was surrounding your casting as this character. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing to me is just that there's always going to be discourse, you know, and I think that the discourse happens, it allows room for growth.
Mhm.
Like, hopefully we learn from these moments where people challenge whether or not my casting was correct based on my skin color. You
Mhm.
know, um, I'm an actor. I have made a career out conforming. And so sometimes I get to play characters that closely to me, and sometimes I don't, and sometimes I
Mhm.
want to push it further. That is for me. When people ask like, what is the meaning of like acting, all of these things, like it's a reflection of life, right? So this is my interpretation of who this character is, and I'm up for the challenge. I always just like urge people to give it a chance, just
Mhm.
watch. And I get this is in our culture, in our like domain, like it's very common to box, like people like me in, so no, you got to stay in that lane. But I'm always trying to break the mold, um, whether good or bad. I'm up for the challenge always because I'm gonna do the work, and when
Mhm.
I do the work, normally you reap the benefits of your labor.
Yes. Yeah. Rome, where can everybody find you on social media to keep up with what's going on with you, and then also what might be happening in front of or behind the scenes on Godfather of Harlem?
Yeah, everyone can follow me on Instagram, Rome Flynn, YouTube, Rome Flynn. I mean that's pretty much it. I ain't really active on X like that, but I do have one, you know.
Yeah. All right. Rome Flynn, thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate you joining me.
Dropping our love color hoodies, fly like soundtracks, 8 tracks, taking it back to LPs, that's a flashback. I lay down fashion on these streets like Beverly Hill asphalt. Got everyone driving clean, they can't help but feel the vibes. It's a full of soul. I'm from the East Coast where the rap game is gritty, spitting lyrics so raw they hit hard like the streets.
And joining me in the room now is none other than Swizz Beatz, Grammy-winning producer, rapper, entrepreneur, and art collector. He's the mastermind behind some of hip-hop's greatest anthems, and he's also the executive music producer for Godfather of Harlem, the hit series now streaming on MGM+. Swizz brings a sound to that show that's as raw and powerful as the story itself. Let's get into it, Swizz. Welcome to the
That's a
room.
that's a hell of an intro. Thank you.
We try to do a little something, something, man. How you been?
All good, all good.
Good, good, good.
Yes,
Staying busy?
super busy.
Yeah, I'm sure, man. I'm sure.
Yeah,
So with Godfather of Harlem, you're mixing past and present. How do you make something from the 60s still relevant today?
man. I must say thank you to my team for letting me have the creative freedom to work on the show and create new sounds that can be for any time.
Hmm.
And I think that going with the sound of the era was very predictable. And so I said, let's challenge that and let's give them something of today and be able to break new artists and be able to just have fun and score the music to the characters, instead of just placing songs that's from an era. Like, let's think about, let's make this the voice of Bumpy Johnson, what's in his head. Let's make this the voice of what's in, Joe Colombo's head and things like that. And so that's was the method that I came up with in season 2. After doing season 1, I was like, you know what? I want to switch the way that I'm doing the music a little different. And it worked.
Yeah. Yeah, man. What was that process like being very specific to character and giving them kind of their whole life music?
Yeah, it was like when I was watching the playbacks, I'm like, man, what if I was the voice in Bumpy Johnson's head? What would that sound like? What would that song sound like? What would, you know, all of the main characters, when you see Stella, okay, when you see Stella, what's the mood of her music and which artists match her energy? And it was a pairing like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And did collaborating with other artists help with that process?
Yeah, because, you didn't have to be an artist that had a major hit song out for
Mm.
us to want to work with you. It's like, wow, this person's tone right here actually fit the energy. So what? Nobody really knows them yet, but they'll get to know them through the show. And I love mixing known artists with unknown artists because it just gives you the freedom to just do the best job possible.
Yeah. And what I love about that is that it gives you an opportunity to work with some established people, probably most likely with you that you know, but then also, reach back and bring, in some up and coming artists as well.
Definitely, definitely. That's the gumbo right there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Why was that important to you, man?
It was important to me because the show is a new show. Although this is our fourth season and we got Emmys and all of the great things that come with a great show. I always love to have an opportunity to give up and coming artists a chance to be on the big stage.
Hmm.
And the Godfather of Harlem allows that for musicians and songwriters and what have you. And so to me, it was definitely checking the box of doing amazing things.
Yeah, man. And you are. You've got an eye for art and an ear for hits. How do you know when something's gonna last, when it's gonna have that staying power?
Oh man, that is really intuition. It's really intuition, but it's also a trained eye from being into art for over 20 something years, a trained ear for being in music, same amount of time, maybe more. And it's just studying the grades and just knowing what feels good to you, actually. It's like, okay, this feels good to me. Okay, this speaks to me. You start to really listen to your body and listen to your heart of what feels great. And so like when I see an artist, I'm like, oh, that's a superstar. I know in 2 seconds just from, you know, being a DJ first and playing so many hit records. I started as a DJ, so like that kind of trained my ear of what people like. Because when you're a DJ, you have to make sure the crowd can respond. You have to tell what the mood is. You have to, tell all these different things. And so, that's kind of like how I trained my ear was through DJing and going to the galleries when I was young. Can you see me going to the galleries
Oh
when I
yeah,
was
we're good,
younger?
man.
Okay, going to the galleries when I was younger helped train my eye for art. And I just stuck with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Man, speaking of DJing, if Bumpy Johnson, if he had a playlist, what would it be?
Bumpy, Bumpy would have a gangster playlist.
East Coast or West
Yeah.
Coast? Come on now.
I mean, Bumpy was international. You gotta remember, Bumpy was doing business all the way out the country.
Right, right, right.
So it'll have a little bit of everything in it. It'll have a little bit of jazz, it'll have a little bit of Latin, it'll have a little bit of hip hop, it'll have a little bit of R&B. It just depends on his mood. The song that comes to my mind is Scarface. Never seen a man cry until I see a man die. Like
Wow.
it's like Bumpy's energy right there.
Yeah, go into that a little bit, Swiss. Why? Why is that his energy?
Because when Scarface wrote that song, it was super deep, and we look for songs like that speak to the character. And Bumpy Johnson has put so much pressure, you know, in what he had to do and how he had to maintain his strength. And so it's just like these guys are acting tough until they got put under pressure
Wow, that's
from
true.
him, right?
Yeah,
And so that's why that song um, comes to me. And even the Pac and Scarface song "Smile," right? Because
right.
he does have like monumental moments of victory.
Hmm.
Although they're short lived most of the time because it's a back and forth battle with him and the Italians. Um, he does have smiling moments where it's like you feel happy for him because he fought, he didn't fold, and he was doing a lot of things for the community, not only the negative things that he got the biggest name for. Like he was definitely building the community for sure on the other
Hmm.
side of the gangster stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Man, it's so strange because, I'm in LA and of course I have lived in South Central for most of my life, man. How do you think that is you think it's some type of penance, man, with gangsters to, they're of course they've got their hustle, but then they're also trying to work and give back to their communities.
Yeah, I mean, nobody really want to do gangster things. It's just the climate of the environment that force you to have only one way out in most circumstances and situations, which was bumpies, right?
Hmm.
You're not. able to get the proper education. You're not able to get to apply for the proper job. So, you're seeing your family starve. So your back is against the
Mm,
wall. So then you got to go do the unthinkables. And so, that's what Bumpy Johnson and many people from the streets had to deal with. You know, I grew up in the South Bronx. I seen it every day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you've been deep in music, film, art. What's one behind the scenes moment, maybe on Godfather of Harlem or in the studio that really shifted how you see things?
The way that we did our studio sessions was like a party.
Mm,
You have Forrest Whitaker in there. We always have the cast members come to the session. We have the producers come to the sessions. We have the directors. We have an open door policy to where that it feels like one family, not silos or, oh, this is that department, that's this department. Everybody on Godfather Harlem, we all meet at the studio. I always play the tracks. Then you have artists coming in doing their verses. Like I remember when DMX and Forrest was in the studio, it was Forrest, one of Forrest's best moments and one of DMX's best moments. He was a super fan of Forrest. And so I remember seeing that and just seeing everybody just in their own world and happy for each other for the success that they've done. And so we always try to keep it like a family orientated thing
yeah,
in the studio.
yeah. Why is that important to you, Swiss, to have that type of environment? I mean, because you could just be like, I'm gonna produce some music, I'm gonna meet with the artists and be done with it. But why was it important for you to create that atmosphere?
Because you don't really see it that much.
Hmm.
You don't really see communities coming together like that. Especially in the corporate world, everybody have their straight positions. I'm in this lane, I'm staying in this lane, you guys do that, and this person is not supposed to do that, and this person is only supposed to talk. It's like, no, like we trying to get to the victory together. And then
Yeah,
music is so exciting. Like, like when you come to the studio and you feeling the energy and
yeah,
and maybe have some wine or something, or just be a fly on the wall and just see how the creation is done. And a lot of people learned a lot in those sessions, and they have high respect for that process that we make look easy.
hmm,
And it's like, wow, like DMX didn't even write on no paper. He just went in there and did that. Wow. Switch
right.
just seen this particular scene and went in there and did this. And it just shows you the inner working, and it keeps us tight as a unit as well.
Yeah, I love that, man.
Dropping our love color hoodies, fly like soundtracks, 8 tracks, taking it back to LPs, that's a flashback. I lay down fashion on these streets like Beverly Hill asphalt. Got everyone driving clean, they can't help but feel the vibes. It's a full assault. I'm from the East Coast where the rap game is gritty, spitting lyrics so raw they hit hard like the streets.
Swiss, welcome back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for being here, man. When it's all said and done, Swiss, what do you want people to feel when they hear the name Swizz Beatz?
I want them to feel sky's not the limit, it's just a view. There's footprints on the moon. Why should the skies be our limits?
Hmm.
Right? Keep going way beyond your imagination, because like I said, growing up in the South Bronx, I didn't really have big dreams and goals like that because they weren't in front of me.
Mm.
All I wanted was an MPV and an apartment.
Right, right, right. The
Right.
the basics, right?
Yeah, you just want the basics. We didn't even know we was poor
Hmm.
in the hood because everybody else was on the same level, and it wasn't even about money at that time. Right. It wasn't, you knew people were struggling, you knew people was going through something, but nobody really knew they was poor in the hood like that. Like,
Hmm.
although our grandparents and parents were working super hard to provide ends meet for us. Like I was packing bags at 6 years old,
Wow.
at Seatown figuring it out.
Right, 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 right.
Right. So, and then went into cutting hair and then went into making mixtapes. Like I always had a hustle. I always wanted to work. My whole bloodline, my family is they work. It's
Hmm.
not too much complaining. There's not too much waiting around for other people to fix the problems because they never was gonna come.
Hmm.
You waiting on people that's not coming. So
Right, right,
you
right.
know, you get up and get out and get it instead of complaining about it. Be about it. And that fueled the energy even still to this day.
Yeah. What do you want them to feel about Kasim?
Um, just, just positive energy, you know,
Hmm.
positive energy because there's a lot of negative energy out there that's really attractive. It's like negative energy just for some reason seems very attractive, but the positive energy should be more attractive than the negative energy, right? So you'll
Hmm.
see something negative in the news going very far, then you see like me graduating from Harvard going very short, right?
Hmm.
But like if I did something or somebody just said something, that's gonna go way far around the world. Or, but me having a Bronx charter school is nobody want to talk about it. Right. So this is why I say we need to double down on the positivity.
Yeah, yeah. Man, it's funny that you say that because, our platform here at Black in the Green Room is all about positivity. It's all about
That's amazing.
showcasing, positive energy and positive inspiration. And man, but I do find it common of what you just said that people are usually drawn to the negative, especially sometimes us. Why do you think that is?
I think it's the easiest way for people to escape their problems.
Mm,
Right. So,
yeah, real talk.
people use it as a cure, but it's a double downer at that point, like for you to take something somebody's going through to make yourself feel better. What does that tell you about you?
Hmm.
That you need to do better. If that's news that's terrible makes you feel good, you should question who you are. When I see things happening to people, I don't like it. I wish them the best. I wish them luck. I wish them everything that's in a positive way. Like I'm not sitting there laughing and joking about it because that's somebody's real life. And
That's right.
that's somebody's real parent or real brother or real son or daughter, right? So, you know, um, yeah, positivity.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's real talk.
Dropping, I love color hoodies, fly like soundtracks, 8 tracks, taking it back to LPs, that's a flashback. I lay down fashion on these streets like Beverly Hill asphalt. Got everyone driving clean, they can't help but feel the vibes. It's a full of soul. I'm from the East Coast where the rap game is gritty, spitting lyrics so hard it hit hard like the
Smith, Markuann, welcome Black.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome, man. You're very welcome. One of the things you do well is bring the right people into the room, whether it's Swizz Beatz setting the tone musically or now Rome Flynn joining the cast this season. What do you look for when you're choosing who to build with, and how do you know when someone just fits right?
Well, you talking to someone that played basketball at one time, so we all team plays. The point guard needs the shooting guard needs the small forward, the power forward, and the center. So I was always the type of person to always play offense. We play defense a lot, but I wanted to play offense and making sure that these characters that we bring, they can evolve into something bigger than they are. For example, with Forrest Whitaker, he at first he didn't commit to playing Bumpy. He committed to producing it, right?
Hmm.
So in my mind, I'm saying we have to get a great writer. So I got spec scripts from all over the place, from UTA, CAA, WME. And one day I was just looking at IMDb Pro and I looked and found Chris Brancato and Paul Eckstein. Paul Eckstein, RIP, rest in peace. Chris Brancato created the TV series Narcos. And Paul flew out to New York to meet me, and he's a big sprawling guy, man. I miss him so much. And he said, "You know what? Bumpy put my grandmother through secretarial college. We did hoodlum. I want to make this happen with you." Chris at the time couldn't commit to it because he was working on some other projects. He was working on the El Chapo series. He was working on this project called Las Sirenas that was going to be on CBS, a pilot that didn't get picked up. And 6 months later, Chris said, "You know what? I want to get this done with you. But we got to tell it through the perspective of Bumpy coming home from jail in 1963." So that was one part that we made happen. And then bringing in Bumpy at the last hour, Forrest said, "You know what? I want to play Bumpy Johnson." it was just like magic being so surreal, it's so happening so much, I couldn't ask for the cards to align any better than it did.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How much confidence did it give you in the work that you knew that you were creating when you were able to assemble all these people?
The confidence was always good for me, but
Mm,
I'm not gonna lie to you that I didn't feel defeated a couple of times because Forrest is actually in the room pitching it with me. We had
mm,
the president of the ABC, Pat Moran, Tracy Underwood, Forrest Whitaker, Nina Yang Bon Jovi, my partner Jim Atchison, the great professor James Smalls was actually out there as well too. And we were getting no's. No one believed in this dream that we
mhm,
had. They were like, okay, that's cool, but we're gonna pass. We actually got passed twice by stars. Ari Emanuel, the head of WME, walked us into Chris Albert at Stars, and he said he didn't see it. But Michael Wright, who came from a company called Amblin Entertainment, Steven Spielberg's company, and it was over at TNT, he saw the script. He was like, "You guys, we need to meet." They went there. I got depressed. I'm not gonna lie to you, Keith. I went back to New York City. I was trying to figure out what am I gonna do, man. Like this had to work for me. I didn't have a plan B. I only had a plan A.
mhm.
Forrest called me. He said, we're gonna go take this meeting with Michael. I put my phone on, turned my phone off because I was waiting for another letdown. Forrest called me 7 times. Why you not picking up your phone? I said, "What's up?" He said, "Yo, we sold it in a room." And then the journey began. The real journey began.
Yes, and congratulations to you, man. Where
Thank
can
you.
everybody watch Godfather of Harlem and where can they find you on social media?
Oh, you can watch Godfather Harlem Sunday, MGM Plus, April 13th, season 4. It's about to go down, hell up in Harlem. And you can follow me at Markuann, that's Markuann on Instagram, Markuann Smith on Facebook.
All right, Markuann Smith. Thank you so much.
Be sure to follow me, Keith Underwood, at Mr. Keith L. Underwood on IG. You can also follow me on FB at Keith L. Underwood. And you gotta follow Black in the Green Room at Black in the Green Room across all platforms. Until next time, this has been Black in the Green Room.